All right, Shabbat Shalom, and greetings in the name of Yeshua. Thank you all very much for being here with us, and thank you very much for your patience as we're working through some technical difficulties. We have a brother that is here with us today, actually two of them. One of them is specializes in the in cryptids, and I've known him for a while through our survival channel called Adirondack Bushmaster, and so I wanted to bring this over here under this channel, because a lot of people, and this brother that I'm going to introduce to you in just a few minutes, he says, I think we started this. And if you wonder what that is, he says, I think we've started this. Cryptids and things are in the Bible, because we've discussed that on our other channel. And so wanted to do that here and maybe get into it and expand it a little bit more, because not a lot of biblical based people understand that. They understand love, faith, grace, mercy, in those main topics, and just the fact that we need to be secure and with eternal life through Yeshua's atoning blood. But to understand the spiritual forces and the implications of demonic forces and spiritual forces and the spiritual wickedness of heavenly places, of spiritual places, felt that this is a good place to bring this to your attention. And so with that, we'll get into this a little bit now. I'll just set it up before I introduce this brother. One of the things is that I believe that this all started, people talking about the Anunnaki, the aliens came down, they were worshipped as gods, and they were gods. I believe these were the fallen angels, Nephilim. And Genesis, I believe it's 6, says there were Nephilim in those days and also after. It was mentioned in later on that they were seen when they were going into the Holy Land. King James says, go in there and kill everything that pisses against the wall. It's blunt, but that's King James Version. And one of the ones, if the King James says it, hey, that's all right. They use a little stronger language than what some people might today. But anyway, if you wonder why there was genocide, it's because, why would God do that? These people were mixed up with what some would say today's alien DNA, but fallen angels. Fallen angel DNA mixed with humans. And if that were to go so far and spread throughout the earth, the devil would have won, and there would be no Messiah. There would be no atoning blood, because the Messiah has to be born through human blood, not Nephilim human hybrid DNA blood. So that's the short of end of it, is that the devil is constantly working at deceiving everyone. We need to be constantly on guard and mindful and understand these things, because a lot of people don't talk about this. People think, big deal, what's it to me? But these are things that are important to your walk to understand. People are going in the woods seeing things and disappearing out of nowhere. This doesn't happen by osmosis. Experienced hunters don't get lost. Experienced survivalists don't get lost and come up missing with no trace. Their foot tricks are here, and then they're gone. That is not normal. That is supernatural. And so we're going to discuss that supernatural further. And I'm going to introduce you right now to a brother from Alabama. His channel is North Alabama Cryptid. Are you with me, brother?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm having technical difficulties here myself.
Okay.
Hang on just a minute.
Okay.
I'll check it again. Please, you guys don't need to. Hang on. We're still having technical difficulties here. Yeah, can you see me? Hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now we go.
All right. So, how you doing, brother?
I'm fine.
All right. So, I have a series of
Hang on
questions
just a
for you.
second.
Okay.
I've got a delay in my voice. I have nothing on. I don't know.
Okay. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I've got a delay somewhere or another.
This sometimes happens, but we'll work through it.
Yeah.
I have a question for you, series of questions, and then we got another brother that wants to come and ask you some more questions, and I'll introduce him when the time is right. But right now, how has understanding cryptids, how does your faith play a role in understanding cryptids?
I'm trying to get situated here. Okay, no. Repeat the question one time.
How does your faith help you understand cryptids?
Well, you know, I've been studying the Bible for a while, and you know, I put two and two together on a lot of this stuff, and started reading. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
I couldn't hear. I can't hear. There we go. Anyway, you know, I grew up in a Christian background, and you know, something happened to me. I started putting two and two together on a lot of this stuff, and you know, uh, some of this stuff just stuck right out. But I, you know, I said, you know, some of these creatures that we're seeing and talking about, they've got to be in some of these ancient texts. Well, um, I found out that I started studying uh, some of these Hebrew names and Greek names in the Bible, what they were putting in, and you know, the Aluka that wound up being a horse leech, and you know, King Solomon tells you in Proverbs 30, verse 16, do not be like the Aluka, and that means for you not to drink blood and take of the flesh. Uh, you know, even God warns everybody in the Bible, you know, do not eat the flesh of any animal because that's their life blood. Okay, I started finding cryptids in the Bible not too long ago, like the Aluka. That's related to the vampire. Uh, Lilith, she, her and Adam didn't get along because of mating situations. In other words, she didn't want to do it like he wanted to do it, and she refused to be lay on the bottom, and she left him, and she pretty much teamed up with the devil, and she wound up with succubus and incubus, and then you know they were vampire shapeshifters. All this, the uh, the whole thing. I mean, I just started putting a puzzle together. You know, everything that you can just like Ezekiel says, not Ezekiel, Ecclesiastes. You know, he says, whatever you do, whatever you think, whatever you say, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to dream, all that is in vain because it's done been done before you. Well, that struck a note on me. You know, hey, if it's been done before and all we're doing is repeating the past, then you know I got to figure this out. But that's pretty much what got me in the drive to study all this cryptids in the Bible and aliens and stuff like that. I can't hear him. Hey, Chad, I'm going to have to jump out and jump back in. I can't hear him. He can't hear me.
You good now?
Oh, I'm sorry. I had my mic on mute. It's only me.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
doing it to try to cut out any kind of foreign sound. Okay, so now that's very good, very interesting. Now, what is your understanding of the Sasquatch? Can you share that with our viewers?
Well, there's different types. Up north, you have the Sasquatch. Towards the middle and southern plains, you've got Bigfoot, and then Appalachian Mountains is full of the feral people. I do believe the first 9 sightings that I had were actually feral people. So I'm gonna say that you know, the Yeti, the Bigfoot, they're all related.
Mm-hmm. So you've had encounters then?
Yeah.
With these Sasquatch beings.
Yeah, my last one was more of a Sasquatch.
What was your feeling during that whole thing? During your encounters, what was your feeling that it left you with?
Well, my first sighting scared the car out of me. And then, you know, I really wanted to know what I was seeing. So I started checking these things out. This phone still got an echo. Turn this down. Does that help? No. I'm getting feedback somewhere. But anyway, you know, the thing about it is whenever I first saw them, they were a thrill to me, you know. I didn't know what I was seeing, and then I went home. Mom had already seen one. She was always telling me about a booger, and then Grandpa, he was telling me about a booger. I got him to describe a booger, and I found out that was really what I saw. And it wasn't until here lately that I put the puzzle together that everybody was talking about the Appalachian feral people. And then whenever I found out, maybe that's my first 9 sightings, it's actually feral people.
Mm-hmm.
And the last one was more Sasquatch because he didn't have a neck, and his arms were longer, and his legs were longer, and you know he just had a different appearance altogether. But the last one, man, it was a beautiful experience. I snuck right up on him. He was about a half acre away from him, and he was just looking to his left. The blackberries had just went out. The muscadines coming in. So I figured he was foraging. and really not paying attention to what was going on because he just kept walking. And when he got to the edge of the field, he just took about 2 more steps. He was gone. I mean, he just disappeared.
So it didn't leave you with an impression like these things are our brothers and things we need to protect and all of that, then, correct?
No, I've always wondered if we're connected with them or whatever, but I watched the Chronicles of Cain, the Book of Nod. In that series there that they're talking about, he's talking to his children and he tells them, do not, whenever you see the fairy people, leave them alone and give them respect. And, I think that's pretty much what we need to do. Cain told his family, that these creatures are our friends and we are to respect them.
So where do you think that these Sasquatch beings fall in line? What do you think
I believe they came from Nephilim, really.
Yeah.
Because, Satan and his army came down to earth, started mating with women. And then, after that, they got tired of mating with women, so they moved on to the animals and the fish and all that. And even the Elohim, in the book of Jasher. Now, in the book of Genesis, it says that Anna was the same one that found the asses in the wilderness. In the book of Jasher, it tells you that, Anna went out to feed his father's asses, and he discovered the Elohim, and there was a terrible storm came up, and whenever he saw the storm, all the asses stood still and were frozen. They were like paralyzed. And the Elohim appeared. And what the Elohim are is their lower torso is of a human. The upper torso is more animalistic, and each one had a different animal head. And they came down and they grabbed up the asses, rode off the asses, and put the rest off with them, and took every one of them. But even to this day, Anna's descendants will not go to that area.
Right. That's very interesting stuff. Now that definitely, I think, coincides with that's where we discussed before about having in Greece there was all these half human, half animal things like the Minotaur.
Yeah. The Minotaur,
Minotaur.
Centaurs, all that. Let me tell you what's going on here now. Everybody calls it mythology and folklore. It's not. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Okay, Shem did just like Noah. He followed the path of God. Shem and Ham and Japheth did not. They went on to their countries. Okay, they started sitting around their campfires telling all these stories of what happened before the flood to their children and grandchildren. And, they started telling all these creatures that were there. And then, some of them even made it out of the flood. They made it past the flood. In the Genesis, it tells you that these were giants in those days and even after the flood.
Right.
Some way or another, some of them survived.
Right.
I have a theory on it. My theory is that, some of these caves went down in the ground and then went back up like a tunnel going up into the top of the mountain. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Water will rise up, but if it does not have a hole at the top, it's going to stop at a certain point, because of the pressure. Okay, now some of these Nephilims could have made it inside these mountains and made it up over top and fed off of whatever floated up. So that could have been the way they survived.
So that's interesting because that was a point of discussion that I was having with the other brother I'm going to bring on in a little bit. Is that other dimensions? Did they go underground? Did they go back up to the heavenly realm because they do have that capability of, going up and down. So it seems.
Well, now there was something that we brought up on a telephone a while ago, and I want to bring this up right now. It's not having nothing to do with the cryptids or anything like that or aliens. We talked about this on the phone, during the time of the flood. It acted just like the rapture that we're going to have. Just before the flood came, and just before everyone was going to be destroyed, in the book of Enoch, it says that God took all of the righteous people off the face of the earth. And he gave all of the sinners a chance to repent 125 years. Now, the 100 years was while Moses was, not Noah, excuse me. I don't know why I get Noah and Moses mixed up. Anyway, Noah was building this ark, and it took him 100 years to build it. And so it was 25 years before the flood. God was giving all these people time to repent. Then the 100 years, but whenever they didn't, they hardened their hearts and wouldn't. The flood got them. But now, Methuselah, he was the oldest person in the Bible. I've done a time frame on everything. The genealogy. And if you do a genealogy timeline, you'll find out that Methuselah lived all the way up until the flood. So I would say that he was one that stood out just before the flood.
That's interesting.
But you can find that in the book of Enoch, and you can probably find it in the book of Jason. I don't know. I mean, I've read so much. Even lately, I forgot where.
That's very interesting because, as you mentioned about the genealogy, let me see if I can find this one thing. It's here on our site. I'll just put this up for people to snatch a hold of.
Well, it was like the year 2006, I believe, before the flood came. But now that's another thing. We'll do, if you want to, we'll do another live show about the genealogy and the timelines, and I'll show you how to do the math on all of it.
The genealogy here on Genesis chapter 5 is Adam, Seth, Enos, Canaan, Melechel, Jared, Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech, and Noah. And here's what it means. Their names in Hebrew mean man appointed mortal sorrow, possession, priest of El, come down, teaching, when he is dead, it shall be sent powerful comfort and rest. There's also a slightly different interpretation that I've seen where I'm trying to find that right
I'm trying to hold
now.
this phone still.
So anyway, though the dog man and that sort of thing, do you feel as those kinds of things are Nephilim as well?
Yeah. Now there's another thing. Before the word cryptid, everything that was unnatural, a shapeshifter, all these things. Let's see. Yeah, a cryptid can shapeshift and transform. And in the Native American tales, they tell of them doing all kinds of stuff. But now, the English, everybody got tired of calling cryptids and wanted to call them another name. So they finally come up with the word cryptid. And cryptid kind of summed up all the cryptids. And it all fell into one category. And the word cryptid just got extinguished.
Right.
But
here's another.
What now? I'm sorry.
Go ahead, finish your thought.
Here's another thing. The vampire, the werewolf, and the shapeshifter or the Wendigo.
I was just going to mention the Wendigo.
Yeah. They're all three related. Some people will say four, but the Wendigo and the shapeshifter is pretty much the same. You know, they're cannibalistic and they can do strange things. The vampire can transform into a human, a bat, or a wolf. Now, the only way that a vampire cannot get hurt jumping off of a building, he has to use his cape. A werewolf can transform. It's a man that transforms into a wolf hybrid man by a curse from a voodoo priestess or a witch doctor. Okay, these animals, they can transform back into human form. And the way they jump, they say in the old days, they said that they jumped. The only way they did not get hurt from high distances, they used their long flowing hair. And that was kind of weird to me. I'd never heard that.
Kind of reminds you of Rapunzel, don't it? That old child thing, yeah. So
another thing is they all rely on blood and flesh.
How do you feel that these cattle mutilations, we discussed this on the phone earlier, how do you feel that plays into this? With these blood-sucking things.
Just like I said earlier, you know, Anna took the asses out to the border of Israel and Jordan in the Valley of Seir. And whenever he took them there, the storm came up, and these humans came out of nowhere. And they snatched up and rode up on their asses and left the rest of them and took them out. I believe it's the same thing. I believe it's some supernatural creature coming out of nowhere. I'm not a real big believer in portals, but I read a report that scientists, NASA, has really been into portals, and they have You won't believe it, man. There's the black cat that crosses your path, and this is Friday the 13th. They just come out. The dog's going crazy over it. Anyway, the thing is, where was I at? Where? Where was I at, Chad? I got distracted. I'm sorry.
So did I. Portals. The portals.
Yeah, well, anyway, NASA started a big thing on these portals, and they found out that the solar flares and stuff like that, they open these portals in our ozone layer. And they're trying to pinpoint them, but they can't. Now, another thing, a creature with high enough energy could create a portal. And they try to prove this.
Right. I have heard that. I've heard people's encounters with the Sasquatch saying they've seen them coming in and out of portals and near them.
Well, yeah, but some of that's going to be pareidolia to them, because I don't think that they all come through portals. Don't think. There's a thing about this. Okay, if you hunt any animal, I have hunted squirrels before. They have run up the trunk of the tree, and I walked around that tree right there, and that squirrel just completely disappeared. And I know he didn't have time to get no wood to hide because the tree limb was up too high, and he wasn't fast enough. But anyway, here's the deal. They can flatten out on the bark of that tree, and if you don't train your eyes just right, you won't see. Unless they move and then turn around. A deer or any other animal, they can be standing right there in the bushes, and you'll never see them, and then turn around, and they all of a sudden they move. Pareidolia is going to tell you, hey, that animal just went through a portal. No.
Yeah,
That's
I have
the
a
reason. That's the
right.
reason I say I don't believe in portals that much.
It's interesting though. Somebody says they've seen something. It's difficult to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, there's more research needs to be done in all of this. I mean, there's a lot of people saying, they're using portals, they're having supernatural powers, all this stuff. I had one guy tell me that he was talking with another guy, and he heard a knocking on the side of his house, and turned around, and Bigfoot was dropping marbles on his head from outside the house. Well, how is Bigfoot going to drop marbles through a solid tree? That's a little far-fetched.
Yeah. What is your understanding of reptilians? Like reptilian-looking, lizard-like humanoid figures.
Okay, they came from the Nephilim too, because you got to think. In the book of Genesis, the first thing that Satan appeared as is a
serpent. Right.
And in heaven, they were a group of Satans, not just one Satan. They were a group of Satans. And I believe that most of these fallen angels were a lot of the Satans that were in heaven. And there's another thing. They all breeded with the animals. So yeah, they breeded with the reptilians too. So they wound up having children that were reptiles. There's a lot of reports. National Forest, deep woods anywhere. You know, people have seen these reptilian things. The Seers, you know, there's all different stories about them, but I believe them because I think they're all breeding representatives.
Right. That's what I understand it to be as well as aliens. And what is your take on that? Your understanding?
Oh, I believe there's other creatures on other planets, and I believe they have more technology than us. They have more training and everything. Uh, you know, I believe we've been visited many times. The Anunnaki was supposed to be the first aliens that came here, and actually, if you do your research, that's they're not really the aliens that came. They're the fallen angels, and they're
Right.
training all these people and doing this and that. Uh, Ishtar was the one that showed the women how to paint their faces
Right.
and everything. And then there was another fallen angel that learned about a fight. There was another one that showed everybody how to make weapons of war and all this stuff. I mean, if you dig deeper in the studies, there's a lot going on. But now the Ezekiel quill, that's another thing. And do you remember the craft of God that came down and then they built the temple so that he could land? You remember that?
It's not referring to Ezekiel's wheel, is it?
I don't rightly remember. It was either that one or another side. The chariot of God or something other came down.
Yeah, I think
Anyway,
it's Ezekiel's wheel.
yeah. Well, anyway, there was one scientist in Germany that was building one part of this, and he didn't know it, but there was a guy in Sweden building another part of it. You know, one was building the temple, one was building the crest itself. They met at a summit, and neither one of them knew each other. Neither one of them knew that they was working on this, and they set it down. Somebody grabbed up Ezekiel quill, if that was it, set it right in that uh, building that he built, and it fit perfectly. But the aliens, you know, some of them could be angels of the Lord, you know, but some of them could be from Satan.
Right. Possibly angels and demons, but I look at it like this: is that these things have been reported to take people, zip them through a wall or a window, closed, no holes, impregnate them, plant chips in them and devices to track them. That doesn't sound like somebody that is here from Alpha Centauri that wants to be our space brothers. To me, it sounds very demonic, especially the creepy, evil feelings that these beings give. Is very much like the Sasquatch, with a Sasquatch encounter that I had. It gives you a paralyzing feel, excuse me, where it cancels out fight or flight. All reasoning is gone. People have encountered, I've seen wild animals throughout the woods over the years, different kinds of encounters and things. And I'll tell you, there's no kind of terror. There's just seeing something that should not exist right before your very eyes and having a witness there too. That's very, very deep to me, and it just tells me that there's a deeper spiritual connection that's affecting people.
Yeah, I believe that too. You know, there's a lot going on in this world. God told you to search in the passages of the Bible. Seek out its dark meanings. And I feel like that's what I'm trying to do now. You know, I'm trying to unravel the secrets of the Bible.
Right.
But you
And
got to take, you know, I just did a show about the little people not long ago. And as I started that research, I did not know that one research was going to wind up being a second research and a third research just for one show. First of all, I had to figure out that most of these little people were talking about the same thing. From the Native Americans, the tribe that was close to one another. They just gave them a different name for their language. And then
right.
turns out I've got to research how to speak Native American language. You know, I've got to learn how to say all these names. So it wound up three researches into one, and that really drove me crazy. But I got her done.
Now the thing is that I hear as a
Speaks to the
discussion.
little people.
Interesting. So there's a discussion that I've heard is that if God created life elsewhere, that life may have evolved perfectly, not evolved or adapted perfectly. Let's say the Garden of Eden was presented somewhere else, and these people did not fall to the devil's deceit in the garden with Eve. Say there was an Adam and Eve somewhere else. They didn't eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. They ate of the tree of life. It would set a different type of circumstances, possibly. But there again, why would they need to come here? What would we
True.
have to offer?
Well, also in Genesis, when God is creating everything, He says, you know, let's make man in our image. Well, maybe some of these other planets, maybe He did make them in some other image, and He decided that He was going to try to make a perfect race from here.
Theologically, the hour is in reference to God and God is not a good title. It should be Elohim. Elohim is a plural, which most figure that it encompasses the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. In Proverbs, I believe it's Proverbs 8, it says, in the beginning of the world I was brought forth. It's certainly not talking about David. It's talking about the pre-incarnate Yeshua. So anyway, spiritual dimensions. What is your understanding of that?
Well, I tell you, I've had an orb, and back 13 years ago, I was an alcoholic, bad alcoholic. Now, I prayed for solid years straight that God would take me away from this alcoholism and make me quit. Finally, after a year of praying just as hard as I could, I did something there that I should have never done. I got mad at God. I told him he wasn't listening to me, and I wasn't going to do nothing else for him. I wasn't going to play to him enough if he didn't hit me, and I meant it. And I slammed my beer down on the ground. As soon as I did, pow, right above the tree, the oak tree, there was a hole that was right above that tree, and I was just froze. And I was thinking to myself, you know, okay, God, you got me. Let's see, you're dealing with me. And I quit, because I know you want me to. And I apologize for forgetting to do that and ask forgiveness. And I've been 13 years sober ever since.
That's a wonderful testimony. That is a beautiful testimony. So I'm going to introduce. Actually, I'm going to give you just a few minutes to cover any other topics that you want. And then I'm going to bring on this other brother who's got some questions for you.
All right. Well, you know, I've had many dealings with the paranormal. I've been dragged out of bed twice by the shadow people. Now, I was laying in my bed. My wife was laying next to me. All of a sudden, something other just grabbed me by the ankles, stood me like a plank, dragged me straight out of bed, stood me straight up, right in front of it. And, you know, if these things had eyes, I was looking eye to eye to it. And scared me to death. It happened twice. And I still haven't got the meaning of what that meeting was with them. I don't know. Or what they was trying to relate to me. I've had ghost sightings whenever I was a kid. Uh, we were after church. We were all gathered in a parking lot. I was 5, 6, 7 years old, something like that. I can't remember exactly. But anyway, we were all there, and the deacon was standing next to me. And all of a sudden, I looked out towards the graveyard, which was about 25 feet away from us, I guess, 25, 30 feet. And up from behind these two tombstones, there was two white spirits came up like they were clouds, and they floated towards the old church house. They had just built a new church house in 72, and the old church house was still standing. And these two ghosts went straight through the door, and I mean, didn't open it, just went right through the door like you'd see a regular ghost on TV do. And we walked over to check it out, and when we got up close to the door, we heard the piano playing and singing. But when the doors were open, it was quiet. I mean, there was not a sound. And that was just an awesome experience for me. I mean, but I guess I've had so many relationships with so many different sightings. You know, it has really made me want to dig in and find out what's going on, because I used to hunt Bankhead Forest and all these other woods. I'd say little creatures moving around, but whenever I glance, they look more like little kids with fur pelts on.
How do you see in ghosts and that sort of thing? Do you feel that those are demons? Do you feel those are disembodied relatives and friends and people that we knew? A little bit of both, or something else?
Ghosts are angels of God, demons. They can be us. We're still attached to something over here and don't want to let go. Either that or we were killed way before time for us to be dead. And, you know, I believe it because I've seen, like, let me think for a minute. One of my kinfolks came back to me as a child and everything. I never knew what the meaning of that was. I just saw them for a few minutes, and it was like just mist. They just disappeared. But they were standing there just so real to me, and I know they were dead. Before I could open my mouth and say one word, these things just disappeared. You know.
That's pretty intense.
I'll feel that echo.
That's pretty intense. I'm going to bring this brother out to introduce him to you and to everyone else. This is brother Chris. He is from Truth Rising TV. You'll sometimes find me on his channel, him on my other channel, and now him on this channel. So, welcome, Chris. How you doing, brother?
Good. Chad, if you could try muting your mic when you're ready and when you're done. I noticed the echo problem goes away when your mic is muted. Maybe.
It's muted now.
Okay. So I had some thoughts going around my head. You guys mentioned Nephilim, Anunnaki, higher dimensions, fallen angels. and that maybe some of the things we're talking about are not myths and legends. These are like the biggest stories on Earth throughout history, and maybe there's something to it, and we should just entertain the idea that they're not myths and legends. I believe that fallen angels and higher dimensions, well, like, hello, those coincide perfectly. If these certain type of arrivals that have come to Earth in the past are using technology because they came from higher dimensions, that we don't have access to that technology, well, that's perfectly fitting in regards to the story of fallen angels. Um, and also in regards to the Anunnaki, their story is that they were here mining gold, and that story is also fitting for some history that revolves around sacrifices involving human blood, animal blood being mixed with colloidal gold to give certain entities that have arrived a mental effect on their cognition that gives them kind of like a hallucination, but more powers. And that also coincides with what's going on in the elite crowds on Earth right now, using human blood of potentially the younger individuals on Earth for their own sacrifices and, things they do in the certain circles like Hollywood and such, and the elite in in the world. And I find it interesting that if you take the story of the gold and the blood and the Anunnaki and how they were mining gold, and that a lot of these sightings that happen with lights in the sky and disappearances that occur are happening near bodies of water and mountains. Those are typically mining locations. You need to have a body of water and a mountain to have a mining location. Those two things always line up perfectly. There could be an element of a remnant of the Anunnaki that are still here mining the gold for their addiction that they have to this blood gold mix, maybe. And do you think that there's any relation to the missing people that go missing, the lights in the sky, and the Bigfoot that have to do with mining operations? That they're not just in the mountains by chance, that they're there because they're mining the gold in the mountains.
Yeah. Well, first of all, the Anunnaki, they are the fallen angels, actually. I don't believe they was alien. I believe they were the fallen angels that, because like I was telling Chad earlier, Ishtar was one of the fallen angels, and she learned the women how to paint their faces. There was another one that learned them how to make war material, all this stuff. That's the same thing the Anunnakis did, and they enslaved these people also. So I believe that the Anunnakis are actually the fallen angels, and we're just misinterpreting it as that because of these ancient astronaut theorists is the biggest problem. I could get into that, but I'm not going to make nobody mad because
no, that proves. I believe it proves what they're trying to get across. You're just proving it correctly. You're saying it correctly. It's telling the same story, just you're telling it biblically as opposed to their modern interpretation.
Yeah, because they're misinterpreting a lot of stuff. Bigfoot, he ain't alien. Just like I told Chad earlier, in the book of Nod, the Chronicles of Cain, he tells his children that if they see the hairy people of the woods, to be nice to them, give them respect, and they will leave you alone. And that's exactly what we're teaching today while we're doing our research. You know, we're gifting them. We're trying to respect them, give them their room, but we want to see more of it. And we're trying to push the limits to get in there to make everybody realize that these things are real. Uh, I sent Chad a video last night. It's a little short clip. Gorillas at the zoo. It's on YouTube. Gorillas at the zoo when it rains. These two gorillas, the one jumps up, and I mean, he really takes off running as fast as he can on two legs, and he's swinging his arms, and he looks just like a Bigfoot running across there. The other ape, these both silverbacks, the other ape grabbed looked like a tablecloth, throwed it over his head, and took off running just as fast as he could on two legs to get into the enclosure. I mean, somebody actually videotaped this and put it on the air. And if you look, that's the same movement as of what we're seeing the Bigfoots do. You know, they're walking upright. They're primates and human mix. Some of them are. Some of them are Neanderthal human mix is what I believe I saw. What we call the wild man, old booger, Bigfoot. You know, I believe that those are actually feral people. And then the Bigfoot, you know, they're the hairy ones that look kind of like ape and man hybrids. Then you have the Sasquatch, which are even bigger, and then the Yeti is even bigger. And you know, there's several places here on Earth that has the same creatures, and you know, they're telling pretty much the same stories, and they're not making this stuff up. And a lot of people, you know, they believe that, you know, they're watching this stuff and then they're going out saying they got the same thing. No, some of these people in these third world countries didn't even have the internet. And they were filming these things before they started having the internet over there. And then they started sharing them on YouTube and TikTok and all this whenever they finally got technology enough to do it, or were able to. Now, the Anunnaki and the Nephilims, I believe they're pretty much the same. Gilgamesh, now he was one of the the fallen angel sons, I do believe, because he was so big. He could tote 2 lions up underneath his arm, you know, and that's just something that people can't do. I believe it had a lot of things to do with it. They even say that Esau left his family and he married one of the Nephilim's daughters. Is what I've read. I can't remember exactly where, but I did read that. And you know, as far as mining gold, they enslaved humans and took over, not only to mine the gold, but to do whatever they wanted to, build their cities and all this stuff. Now, a lot of people think that all these huge megalithic rocks that were used to build the pyramids were magically put in place. Some of them think that they were, what do you call it when they float?
Levitation.
What do you call that? Levitate. Yeah, it came to me. They levitated them in place. Guy in Florida showed you how to do that. You know, he picked up one man picking up a huge rock and placing it where he wanted it, just with a chain and pulley. You know, that's pretty feasible. But they had just as much technology or more technology back in the day when all this was going on. And as I was telling Chad a while ago, Ecclesiastes says, whatever you think, do, dream, whatever you want to do, it's all in vain because it's already been done.
Now, let me ask you on the topic of enslavement. You have Anunnaki, Bigfoot, humans. Now, I'm kind of leading you somewhere, but I don't want to do that. I want to know, where does each individual one of these specific classes fall? Similar, all the same, all from the same, or all different? did the Anunnaki create Bigfoot? Did they have some hand in humans? I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Oh, okay. My thoughts on that is we as humans were created by God, and we are one race. The second one is the Anunnaki and Bigfoot. The Anunnaki is the fallen angels. The fallen angels transgressed against God and left their former home in heaven and went to earth so that they could mate with the human women on earth. In doing so, they started creating giants. And then, along a few years later, they all got bored of all the women, so they started mating with the animals, mating with the fish, and all this, and they started coming up with even more creatures. This angered God so much, and that's when he told Noah, I've had enough, and I'm going to flood the whole earth. You build you an ark, and we're going to save you and your family. And, you're the only righteous people on earth that can get on here and do my bidding, in other words, whatever I want you to do. The thing is we're humans. We were created by God. No point in going any further on that. But the Nephilim, Anunnakis, whatever you want to call them, they breeded with animals. And in doing so, you had Bigfoot, you had mermaids, you had all kind of creatures that were spawned from these first creatures. And if you look back at mythology and folklore, it's not. This is the stories that were told around the campfires by Ham and Japheth to their children and grandchildren of all the creatures that were there before the flood. The centaur, the minotaur, the unicorn, all this stuff, mermaids, all these cryptid creatures were there, and even more that we haven't even seen yet. And then, there's just so much. I mean, you go down one rabbit hole, and all of a sudden you're divided, and you got to go to one right or left on another rabbit hole. But either rabbit hole leads you to the same point, but it's just telling a different story. If you take the rabbit hole on the left, you might find out some things, but if you go back and take the one on the right, you're going to learn even more. And by the time you reach the end of both tunnels, you're going to know just exactly what the point of the story was.
Now, the Anunnaki, when they came down and enslaved essentially the animals, but they didn't. So, how did they create the slave race that built their cities? Can you talk more about that?
Well, it's just like Nebuchadnezzar. He enslaved. He went over and took them by sword and spear and overcame them and made them come and do all his stuff. All the Jews, all of God's people was taken into custody by Nebuchadnezzar, and there were others that took the Jews into custody and made them a part of their slavery. Throughout history, it's all worked out the same, but it's by force.
And it was people. It was people. It was people that were enslaved by the Anunnakis then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe if it would happen today, they would take you by force. They would put you wherever they wanted you to, and you would be their slave. And I do believe some of these were actually brainwashed. Because you had the ones that were slaves, but they were the ones that were the leaders and telling a captain or whatever over them, telling them what to do, like a foreman or a lead man. I believe that one individual wound up getting brainwashed, and that's the reason a lot of them wound up staying so long. They were brainwashed and didn't want to leave. They thought that everything had to go on like this. But the Anunnaki, yeah, I believe they took the human race by force, just like all the rest of slavery was. Everybody was taken by force, either by war or just a siege. In other words, come in and
Yeah.
you take 1 million people, come over to 100,000. They've got them under. They've got them outmanned 10-1, and there's really no sense in even fighting unless you're really a mighty person, you know. And
Have you heard
like
that they controlled us through our minds? Have you ever heard that?
I've heard a little bit about it. I hadn't really researched that part as much as
I ask because the Nephilim or the Anunnaki, the story goes that they mated with animals and some of the woman first, then animals. The Bigfoot appeared to not want to interact with humans. They're elusive, they're stealthy, they fill you full of fear, tell you to get away. I've talked with individuals that maybe one of the reasons for that is if we share a telepathic connection, and if they're telepathic, and if we're God's creation, and we're connected to God, if we interact with them, the moment we have contact, then God knows where all of them are, every single one. They're all telepathic. What do you think about that?
Let me tell you this. Denise Lynn, Linn, she wrote a book on the Native Americans doing the skinwalkers. That was a tradition and a ritual for them. They practiced this, and the witch doctors were able to put on the pelts of animals, and they were able to transform into that animal. And then if you could, she says that it's the mammalian part of the brain that causes you to be able to transform and shapeshift. Okay, if that is true, that would also be that's your primal nature, is in your mammalian part of your brain, and that sits at the tip of your spinal cord, I do believe. If you can get in control of that one part of your brain, then you can be able to transform. You can be able to be a skinwalker, just like these witch doctors done, is what she's saying in her book. Now, another thing, I believe that, I don't know whether it'd be that part of the brain or another part that would be able to let you speak telepathically. Now, it has been proven that people on Earth here today has been able to talk to one another through voices in their head. This woman, she just killed her 7-year-old son, shot him straight in the head because she heard a voice telling her, "Send your child on to heaven, he'll be better off." So she pulled the trigger on that, and now she's going to spend the rest of her life in prison. I believe in telepathy and all that. I believe it's possible, and I believe that a lot of it, the telepathy, you can brainwash somebody through telepathy, and you just got to control that part of your brain.
Well, now, I think we're talking about something huge here, which I really wanted to get into, and I'm going to wrap it up really quickly, but maybe for another show, which is telepathy. So these animals appear to be telepathic, and we should be, prayerfully mentioning our Creator's name, reciting prayers. We see these creatures because that provides us, number one, with protection. Number two, it kind of, clears the air and also maybe repels them because they are telepathic. They're getting the prayer. They're getting that divine, mention that we're reciting. And so there's two coins to the telepathic equation. Number one is you should be familiar with you. Are these thoughts originating from you? Is it outside source? Is it the general populace, or is it something demonic? And if you feel it's something demonic, reciting prayers is very important. But there's two sides to that coin, which is this is the wild card, which I never ever hear anyone talk about. I'm the only one I've ever heard talking about this, which is if there are telepathic capabilities in mankind and in some of these fallen angels, two sides to that. Not only can they manipulate you, there's some danger to them because if their systems operate on mental stimulus and they have technology that doesn't have keys or buttons or joysticks and it operates on the mind, then we could take the whole thing down if we knew that we were telepathic and we knew that we could interrupt any kind of a demonic AI silicon system or whatever it is, even if there's no technology behind it, even if it's demonic and organic intelligence. But there's two sides to the telepathic coin, and I never hear anyone talking about that. And hey, all these things were flooded supposedly in the past, maybe, or maybe they had control of our minds, and if we resisted, all of a sudden their city of Babylon or whatever, which they were building, you told me they were building cities, maybe all of that all of a sudden got interfered with because our compliance, our consent, our control, we were being controlled, ended. And if we resisted, what that's like is like a virus inside of a computer. The whole computer software crashes in a second. And that's one of the reasons they may flee. They may want to try to get very, very far away from God's creation if God's creation resists. Because if we're resisting, if we're like a virus inside of their existence the second we resist. Have you ever heard anyone talk about that? And do you have any thoughts?
Well, going back to the Bible, in Genesis, it tells you that Adam and Eve was hiding because they heard the voice of God. Okay. I don't believe God was actually there. I believe he was still in heaven, but his voice, he translated it some way to earth and was talking to them through the power that he has. Many aliens, they tell that they talked to them through telepathy, and they told them what they wanted them to do. A lot of these people that have had alien contact, they said that that these aliens talk to them through their minds, through telepathy. The higher power the creature is, I believe it can do telepathy, and I believe they use it for good or for evil, whichever one they are. So Satan, he can talk to you through your mind and tell you, go kill this person or do something other stupid, so that you're killed also or in prison for the rest of your life. And then I believe that the angels and stuff, they can do telepathy and talk to you and tell you things in your mind. Even when you're saved and baptized, you can feel the presence of God in your heart so bad, or so not bad, but so much that you feel like you're going to have a heart attack. And you break out crying and everything. And I believe that, like they say, God reached down and touched your heart. Okay. I believe that there is so much in this world that we don't understand. A lot of people are trying to say that Bigfoot talks with uh, infrasound. I did a study on that. They said that the dogs and man is the only two creatures that cannot hear infrasound. Uh, I don't know if that's so much true with the dogs now, but they did a big study on all these animals. They found out that they have to have a larger throat in order to do the infrasound. And they pretty much figured out that the gorillas, the chimpanzees, the humans, the dogs, cats, and all that, they cannot do infrasound. Uh, there's some more creatures that can't do it. You know, the giraffe and all this. Uh, the ones that can do infrasound is the whale is the one that really can do it. Dolphins. Uh, there's some more. I can't remember all of them, but yeah, uh, there is a deep thought right there on what you're talking about. I mean, I could sit here for another hour and talk about it, but you know,
No one ever talks about it. It's just shied away from. But I want to wrap it up on my end because I want to let Bushmaster Chad jump back in. Thank you. It was. Thank you both for letting me be on.
Hey man, that's fine.
Oh, yes. You're very welcome. We'll wrap it up here. I thank you both for being here. It was excellent questions, excellent answers. We're sorry about the feedback issue, the age of technology, but hopefully you'll get through it so that you'll be able to get this very unique information. And I'll close you both out. I thank you both for being here with us. And I'll talk to you both later. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brothers.
Thank you all very much for being here with us. It's definitely a very important message to understand. These creatures are evil. Do not be seduced into loving them and following them and offering them protection and feeding them and trying to bring them close to your family. That's very detrimental. It's certainly something that you don't want to bring to you. So, I thank you all very much for going through this difficulty with the feedback and echoing and stuff. It sometimes happens. So, say a brief word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you, praise you for each and every one that is here today, Father. We give praise, honor, glory unto you. We hope it reaches people and it blesses people and it teaches them about the reality of the spiritual war that is at hand and the evil forces that be that are here to deceive us in many, many different ways. We ask this in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach. Amen. All right.